Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Customer Spotlight webinar. We're just going to give it a minute or two here for everyone to filter in. All right, the numbers are coming in, which is great. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm just going to give it another 30 seconds here for everyone to filter in. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. Thank you everyone for joining our Customer Spotlight webinar, Real Experiences with AI. Today we have Leanne Courtney, a Business Applications Manager at Procom, James Veal, Systems Innovation Manager at Meet, and then our moderator today is Nicole Krunsky, our Director of Product Marketing here at Bullhorn. James just went through a fire alarm at his building and he's still joining now. So thank you, James. I see you have found a bench to join from. Perfect. Some webinar housekeeping items before we get started. Today's session will be recorded and shared afterwards in an email. Everyone will be on mute for the duration of the session, but we do encourage you to ask questions in the dedicated Q&A panel, and we will try to get to those questions throughout the session. If we don't get to your question, we will have someone follow up directly with you after the session. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Nicole, our moderator.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you. A special thank you to Leanne and to James for being with us and being willing to share your knowledge and expertise and experience. So we are delighted to learn from you today. So my first question is really just about, AI adoption and implementation and what made you decide to go for it? What gave you the confidence to try it? What was it maybe about your personal experience, but also the company that you're at? What made you ready to go? And why don't we have Leanne answer first?
Yeah, sure. So for us at Procom, we're quite a large firm in North America, and so we really wanted to make some of those manual tasks a lot easier and a lot quicker. And AI really helps with that, where we don't have to think as much. So kind of like a little assistant that follows you around. It can really help you do the base, so that if, for example, you're generating a job description, it gives you the base, and then you can edit and go over it. But it takes away that big lift at the beginning so that you can focus on your relationships with your candidates as well as with your clients. So we just wanted to make people's lives really easier and overall a bit more efficient in their day-to-day operations.
Awesome. James, how about you?
Yeah, so from my experience, I've been working with Bullhorn for about 8 or 9 years as a customer now. So when I saw kind of AI assistant coming out, it was something personally I wanted to be involved with and see how I could continue to push the system to their limits. I'd also had sort of worked at other agencies previously, and so this is the third time I've rolled out Bullhorn AI Assistant, and I can just see the impact it has on consultants, the way that they speak about Bullhorn as a platform, and really kind of impacting that user experience. Kind of taking fields from being filled in because it needs to be there for a report or because a manager's asked you to do so, to being I'm filling in because I can see the genuine benefit it has to me in the the next days and weeks that I'm going to be using the platform.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So all right, so if we know now what gave you the confidence to get started and why you jumped in, but there are a lot of ways you can apply AI in the day-to-day of your business and in your workflows. So how did each of you determine where you wanted to start first? Like what, beyond just trying to amp people up and get the, that baseline kind of assistive piece done, what business challenges were you trying to solve first? Sort of what's the first problem you used AI to get to? And James, why don't you go first this time?
Sure, yeah. So I think there's a real difference between kind of having a really nice plan as to how you can use AI, or having a really nice plan of how you could potentially build an automation, and then actually the reality of what people deal with on a day-to-day basis, the wonky elements of process that might be in place, stopping you from implementing that fantastic plan. So from the get-go, kind of we work directly with our recruitment consultants that were using the AI assistant. And we actually started with a much smaller group and very much asked them, what do you wish it could just do more of? Or when you're using that prompt, where is the gap, compared to what you currently write and what it's writing for you? And I think by having that sort of consultative approach from the get-go, it meant that when the wider user base then started using AI Assistant, they had a lot more useful things that were kind of in the context it needed to be for Meet. I think beyond that as well, like do have a consideration of the art of the possible as well. Like some of the good automations that we've good processes that we've put in place that utilize AI assistant has come from having a very honest chat with the Bullhorn team, understanding, when an update might be coming out and then saving ourselves the work of building something that might have been complex and just leaning into a system that already has the right field categorized in the right way, or, a prompt that is pre-built with the context of recruitment. So I'd say, yeah, like lean into what has already been built.
Cool. Cool. Leanne, I saw you nodding along. Anything else to add?
Yeah, I think also it's just really important to ask questions about what are you spending parts of your day that's really frustrating, and maybe we can leverage AI to really help you with that. So if you're sorting through a lot of web responses, for example, and you want to make that a shorter pool, that's something that is quite time consuming, and something like AI can really help with that because it can sift through and give you a smaller pool and a more accurate pool, I guess, rather than just having hundreds and hundreds that you need to sort through. And then also, like, if you listen to people's frustration, automatically like a solution can come out and go like, hey, maybe AI can help you with that. Instead of it taking 60 minutes, it might take 10 minutes. And really just understanding, like what James said, understanding their day to day and not thinking that AI is going to solve absolutely everything, but more as a helper. I think that's super important when you're approaching AI and starting small, right? Like starting with little tasks rather than trying to do everything at once.
Yeah. No, that's great. That actually leads really well into my next question, which is really about adoption and change management, right? So I totally hear your point that if you're solving the problems that your folks are facing, that's going to make them a little bit more interested in using it and looking for how AI can help. I'm curious, what role did leadership at your companies play in sort of successfully adopting AI? And do you have any tips and tricks for people to try to get, their teams excited about using it and actually trying something new? Leanne, first.
Yeah, we're super lucky. Our leadership is really innovative and really embraces technology. So I think when it starts from the top, it gets other people excited about it as well. It's a little bit easier when the leadership are trying to solve and go, hey, how can we pepper AI throughout our operations? But I think a really important piece is, like I said before, like really starting small. Like you shouldn't try and roll out too much too quick, because then you don't get any adoption and people just get frustrated because they're like, I don't really know where to start. But in regards to the advice that you said for leadership, I think just being curious is a really good place to start, to say, okay, what small things could I pepper AI? Like whether it's screening, whether it's helping with an email, crafting your email to be a bit more targeted. It means that people can digest it a little bit more. Whereas you try and bite off too much that you can chew, then it doesn't work out for anyone. And what I mean by that is if you're saying, well, we'll get AI to do all of our screening of our candidates before we send them. Well, that's not going to work. You need to start small and really build up. And that's how, like, I would advise people to start. It's just to start small and then let it grow.
Great. James, how about you? What role did leadership play in sort of the change management and adoption process?
So yeah, at Meet, we've been really lucky to have our leadership team really see the opportunity by making some of the incremental improvements, but then also kind of looking beyond that and saying, actually, the tech might not quite be there yet, but in 6 months, we're going to be able to, completely change a process or, change someone's role so that they're doing something, taking them away from things that they don't enjoy as much. I think there's kind of two elements. It's really been around that sort of like honesty of what people are doing with AI at the moment and where they don't understand it, but also giving that freedom for people to go and experiment, test things out. we with some of the VPs, we ran a series of workshops internally with different regional teams to just say, look, tell us what you're doing at the moment. We know that you're utilizing AI in some way, shape, or form. Just let's have a chat about it, talk about it, put it on the table. And it wasn't a case of kind of telling people off, but it was more about informing people, making sure that they knew exactly what they should and shouldn't be doing. But also some of the leaders then being going, I use it for this, and it got a lot more people in that room, then much more open to talk about, honestly, how they were using it. And I think a conversation like that as well really opens the door to say, you do know you could do that within the system, right? Or you do know you could, press this button and it automatically populates the experience section, or it automatically populates the field about skills. And I think just having that very kind of like honest conversation makes people feel like they're not being forced to use something, but it's hey, we did this for your benefit. You might want to go give it a try.
Nice. Yeah. One of the things we encourage our AI early access customers at Bullhorn to do is really to share knowledge among each other, and make sure that the people at your company who are using it are sharing what they learn. You mentioned, James, sort of how the role of the recruiter will change a little bit, and this is something we hear a lot, right? A question we have a lot is a fear that AI is going to replace recruiters. Obviously you both have had a lot of experience using it so far. So what's your take on that? Why do you think they either will or won't replace recruiters?
Yeah, so I think it's very much about elements of the role that are repetitive, that are prone to error. Looking at them as things that we can enhance. I think Leanne made a good point. Almost we're seeing AI as being that co-intelligence. So the point is, it sits beside you, it enhances what you're able to do, but it's not there to replace a person. Um, we very much see it as utilizing AI to bring out more of the human elements of the job. So if you're going to spend a lot of time writing something from scratch, that actually you can bring the context in, and it gives you more time to then sit on a call, have a coffee with someone, talk about those things that go beyond what's written on someone's CV or what's put in a field on the system. Generating more time for that kind of human to human contact. And I think there's a huge element here that we've seen a lot of recruiters. Some of the managers talk about it. You really find out who the true salespeople are. And when you start rolling out some of this tech to different recruiters, those that are the real salespeople in that sense will see where the technology is able to save them time, help them make more phone calls, help them pull more jobs or make more commission. And I think that's where we're going to see the shift. Those people that lean into it and can demonstrate, because I'm using this, I'm now able to bill X more or pull more jobs, or I'm able to work more independently. And I think it's really going to lean into that personal effectiveness element, that people can get more done by themselves without having to wait for other people to do parts of a process.
Awesome. Leanne, what would you add?
Yeah, I think we always are going to crave human connection on some level. It's kind of like when you call a call center and it tells you to press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but then ultimately you want to talk to a real human so that you can feel like you're getting your problem solved, or whether it's not. Before, we used to have maps that were in a book, and now it's all on technology, so it's pretty similar. I think AI just does the first preliminary work, but I don't foresee it replacing recruiters, because I think humans make other humans better, and we do crave that interaction. And ultimately, our clients are going to hire people, right? Like they're not hiring computers, they're hiring the character, whether it's a cultural fit, all those things a recruiter is going to be able to analyze more. And AI is still pretty adolescent for the moment. I think it still needs to learn, it still needs to adapt. So I think like I said before, if you start with tasks that are a little bit tedious and leverage AI there, that's where it's going to have the most impact today. And recruiters will still be those ones, like what James said, like selling the candidates to the clients, and the clients will still want to employ a human, right? And so you'll still need that interaction, just getting rid of those boring tasks, making AI do those.
A great call. Great way to use it. So I wanted to just take a quick pause and pull in a couple questions that have come in. So we had one question come in from LinkedIn Live, and there's actually a question for me with a quick answer, so I'll just hit it quick. The question is, will Bullhorn bring out an end-to-end solution of AI agents from sourcing, screening, interviews to placement? So the answer to that is yes. Right now, our Agents Edition has a number of agents that will do a lot of those things, and we continue to expand upon those. So stay tuned. And then a question for Leanne and for James. The question is, have either of you used an AI screening agent, either Bullhorns or another one?
Do you want to go first, James, or?
Sure, yeah, my answer's quite short. No, I haven't, but I've seen a lot of them so far. I'm still yet to be convinced about the I'd say customer experience that is going to result in those, but I'm very interested to see how they develop.
Yeah, so we have started using it at Procom. We use Bullhorn screening agent, and it still needs a little bit of tweaking, if I'm completely honest, but I'm very open with Bullhorn when it comes to product development. Where we've used it is really, like I said before, to streamline those responses that we get and just make it a little bit more digestible for our recruiters. I think, again, like, it's not going to decide for a recruiter who they need to submit. It's just not there yet, if we're completely honest. But I think it is a really good way when you're working a lot of jobs that are assigned to you to say, okay, you should probably contact these 10 candidates first, because Alice has already deemed whether or not they do have the corresponding experience. So anyone who's looking for an AI screening agent, I would start there. I would always encourage anyone to try it first. Ask the vendor if you can do a bit of a trial and see if it works in your operations, because it depends on your volume, right? Maybe you only have 10 candidates who apply and you want to really give that bespoke experience and be hands-on. But if you're a larger organization, you just might want to test it out and see. And maybe it's not for you, and that's okay. And maybe you'll love it, which is awesome. But I think always asking, like James said, there's a lot out there on the market that integrate with Bullhorn, that don't integrate with Bullhorn. It really depends on your operations, but try always before buying.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. So my next question, I wanted to talk a little bit about the impact that you're seeing from using AI. So can each of you share a specific example of how one of Bullhorn's AI products that you're using has improved either efficiency or productivity, or some qualitative aspect of your recruitment process? So Leanne, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. I would say, I'm going to say at high level again, it's really about cleaning up those manual tasks. So anything that took a lot of copying, pasting, or cutting out large lines of paragraphs, that's where we've really seen the impact of AI. And then secondly would be with Alice. We've had some good results. Like I said, still needs a little bit of improvement, but yeah, we've really just seen that narrowing down, because we're quite high volume. But I would say it's only the beginning. There's probably a lot more tasks that I want to pepper some AI to. Again, I think going slow is really important too. You don't want to try and push down too much AI in the pipe, but that's where I would identify was the biggest impact for us.
How about you, James?
So I kind of briefly touched upon the importance of data and the perception of that with our sales team, but kind of giving that a little bit more thought. It's really been about kind of shifting perceptions of the CRM. The amount of agencies I've worked in where there's been a bit of an echo chamber where people kind of go, the CRM is slow or not useful, or it's just where I go to do all my admin. But trying to shift it to kind of being more of a place of, this is where I go because it's the best place for me to do my work. So we've kind of seen that in terms of people engaging with the AI assistant, because they can just quickly utilize it while they're there and then move on to what they're doing. And I think it pairs nicely into a point that Leanne made earlier, kind of about those kind of boring jobs and things that people don't want to do. But I think if you then can reposition it to say, actually, it helps you with this workflow, or by utilizing it, it gets this outcome, you can sort of shift the focus away from the horrible job that people didn't want to be engaging with in the first place to actually a much more enjoyable experience. So it's really kind of like showing the importance of things being in the right fields, with the right kind of data integrity, and is then helpful for that experience overall for consultants.
As James was talking, I just thought of another point as well that we've seen is some of our clients really like that we've embraced AI. And I think if you don't need to advertise that you're doing it all the time, but you can say that we're embracing the newest evolution of technology, which is AI, and that shows the clients that you're up with all the latest trends. And I think that can be a real selling point as well of optimizing efficiency, is saying like, hey, we're also using the latest and greatest technology to help us get you the candidates as quick as we can, and so that they're more qualitative. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Qualitative.
Awesome. So along this line of sort of the impact that you're seeing, there are two questions that have come in about how you're sort of tracking ROI, how you're tracking usage and adoption and how it's working. So I would love for each of you to just touch on that. Leanne, why don't you go first?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's one of our biggest challenges right now is to try and identify how people are using it. You know, you got to remember that we're in a new era, so we're going lightly. We're trying things out. Um, Usually, it's just we've been asking people, or we've been looking at the reporting that we've developed to see who is using it and how. But it is a challenge that I think we're yet to see. Hopefully, Bullhorn Analytics will bring us some data trends that we can report on. But for us, it's still a bit of a challenge to get those analytics out.
And James?
I'd say we're engaging with AI with a few different platforms, each of which give us different ways of reporting on it. And I think it's important for us at this stage to really see it as a process that we're, building up over time. To have that, there isn't an end date at the moment. There isn't an end date
Yeah.
for particular features. There isn't an end date for particular teams to have a certain level of engagement. But a lot of what we're doing is getting that, feedback directly from people. How do you feel about, what you're utilizing? How do you feel about the systems you're now engaging with? What do you wish it did more of? And seeing us sort of build more of those in. So personally, I have a target in terms of custom prompts that I'm building to make sure that everything that we're utilizing within our Bullhorn AI assistant is set up with the right context for our teams. But I think, as kind of Leanne was saying, it needs to be very open at that stage. We don't want people to feel like we're using a stick to, get them to go and use AI. It should be very, natural in terms of find where it's useful
Organic.
and let the advocates, take the weight of that.
Yeah, awesome. Another question that came in is around client engagement and new clients, and if you're seeing sort of an uptick in that that you're able to support now that you're using AI.
Oh, another good question. Go for it, James.
I can actually jump in with this, and so we implemented a product towards the end of last year that utilizes AI with our CV formatting, helps write summaries of candidates, helps anonymize them, things like that. Now, through implementing that product, we also were tracking spec CVs and jobs pulled from them as well. And part of the reason for implementing it was to save some of the time, to make a horrible job less horrible. But by implementing that, we were also then able to see more of our tenured consultants were sending out a spec CV as a useful way to spend their time because it took less time. And as a result, we had more specs sent out and we had more jobs pulled from those specs. And those were predominantly with new clients. So we're able to then see kind of that was the objective. It was to get more specs out with the people that were effective with those specs. And it was really, really positive to be able to see that and see month on month the increase in those jobs pulled.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a specific use case. I think ours was pretty similar to James. Like we also use AI to help with our resume formatting. I just know that there has been some conversations with our clients where they have asked us if we're using AI. Another thing that can actually, now that I've got my flow, I'm thinking of something else. We also leverage it to help with interview questions, and we can send them to the clients as well to give them a little bit of guidance to see what type of questions that they could ask candidates during the interview. And we can also include some sample answers there so that they know roughly what the candidate would respond if they're a good fit. And that's been actually super positive. So clients feel more supported as well through the recruitment process. So again, really small change. But we've heard and seen a lot better results when we've used that particular feature in AI.
Great. And have you seen any benefits that were unexpected from using AI? Something that surprised you that has been a good thing for the team? Leanne?
Yeah. One big change for us with AI is because we are a Canadian-based company, the French to English and English to French. It's been really good having AI because translation was a little bit of a headache before. Not only does it make us go a lot quicker when we have to translate things, whether it's to a client or to a consultant, but also it's a lot more specific in our region of Quebec French. slightly different to French for those who didn't know. So that's been really, really quick and probably something that we didn't think of at first. We thought that it was more going to be formatting and copying and pasting and making summaries of things, but that's been really good and really helpful to our teams as well, to our clients. The other thing I would say is the screening. I think that there was a little bit of resistance at first when we tried the screening, but I think it's been overall pretty positive, which was surprising. I was a little trepidatious that maybe recruiters might feel a bit worried about having a screening agent, but actually, like I said before, if you present it in a use case of trying to reduce your pool down to a smaller pool, that's where it's been quite surprising that, oh, actually it is helping and it's not just doing my job for me.
James, what would you add?
I'd say this could also be seen as a bit of a, well, not necessarily a direct benefit, but we've found it's opened up a lot more questions about processes that have existed for a long time, fields that have existed for a long time, and consultants going, why am I filling it in, or why is this part of the process built in the way it has? And it's been really positive in the sense that we've actually now streamlined parts of the process. We're looking at different fields, note actions, stuff like that we can remove to make things simpler and not just easier for when we're utilizing Bullhorn automation as part of the process, but so it's clearer for AI where certain information lives, the context of that information, and also just making it so that it's much clearer for the consultants as well. As I'm really keen on the idea that the consultants are really bought into helping build out that process, because if they're the ones doing it on the day-to-day basis, they should really understand how it works and why things exist in the way that they do. And I'm really happy it's really brought them into that conversation.
Great question. So we've got another question that came in just now, wondering how long the implementation process took. And I think I'll expand that to say, what was the implementation process like? James?
So I can jump straight in. So when I've implemented Bullhorn's AI assistant, it has been incredibly quick and easy to do. There is a guide they give you, and when I've done it, we've set up our own LLM. So I've worked with the IT provider or whatever agency I've been at, got on that half of it set up, and then it plugs into Bullhorn incredibly quickly. In terms of implementing Bullhorn AI assistant, getting it rolled out to consultants as well, I'd say it's completely different to your standard rec tech, because it's not that you've got a user seat cost that you need to make sure you get a return on that really, really quickly. It's very affordable. It's based on the usage that people get out of it. So in fact, actually, start small and then ramp it up over time. But in terms of getting users on board, I'd say start with a smaller group of people, get their feedback, adjust it as you need to, and then start building it out based on them saying to someone, mate, you really want to start using this, I've had X, Y, and Z success with it, and let it spread like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Leanne, what do you think?
No, I totally agree with James. Anything that we implement, whether it's AI or other rec tech or sales tech or middle office tech, all the different techs that you can have, definitely start with some change champions or some ambassadors that they then go spread the word for you, right? Like, the reality is James and I aren't on the field every day. We're not going to be using it day to day. So you really want someone who knows the terrain to be the one to go spread the word and be an evangelist. So I totally agree with that. I think the other thing is I like to use the verb pepper, right? So you want to pepper the AI. You don't want to just, spray and pray and make sure that everyone adopts it and have the stick like what James said before. What you want to do is start and go, okay, we're going to try this, then we're going to try that, then we're going to try this, and really build like building blocks, because I find when you try and blast things out, it's too overwhelming for people, right? But if you have your ambassadors, you can also create a really nice feedback loop, right? And you say, what do you think it should do better? What do you think it does well? And really give feedback. Bullhorn is very open. We're very lucky to partner with Bullhorn, where they're open to hearing our feedback. So for anyone out there who wants to try it, make sure that you have that feedback loop internally, so that when you're working with your vendor, you can also share that on the way back. And the best way to do that is starting small.
Great. So we've talked a lot about what you've done so far. And so I'm curious to just see if you're thinking ahead, what's next in terms of AI at each of your companies? Leanne, what's next for you at Procom?
Yeah. we're probably going to expand the usage of our screening agent to really leverage our database and get those recommended candidates high up on the totem pole, as they say. We're also seeing AI peppering through some of the other sourcing tools that we've been using. And then we're really trying to identify what tasks are people doing that's slowing them down in their day that they can't focus on relationships. So probably we'll start peppering some AI on the sales side in their messaging, in cleaning up the database to make sure that we're identifying those hot leads for them. I think that's where AI can really be useful. And then we're seeing how we can optimize our middle office operations as well. We haven't really peppered as much AI in there yet. So as I said, if we started with the recruitment, then we're going to start branching out more and more. So that's our path for the future.
Like no shortage of opportunities there.
No, I don't think there is, unless James wants to say otherwise.
No, not at all. I'd say that there's a few other, I mean, it's kind of very similar. Yeah, we're definitely going to be looking into any opportunity we can sort of enhance the work of our sales team. But also kind of looking as well for where we can report on more with less activity. So one of the automations, well, AI automations that I've set up looks at any record that doesn't have a job title in the job title field, but there's a CV on the record. So can we scrape the CV and populate the job title field? And looking at other opportunities where we can enrich the database with information that's already there, it's just not necessarily in the right place. I think also as well, looking at kind of further opportunities to use what's in the system and make that more accessible for a recruiter. So yeah, I'm very interested in any opportunities to ask AI, when was the last time I engaged with this client? How's the best way to reach out to them? You know, how many steps should I have until I, you know, pitch to this client? Things like that, you know, it could be almost that consultant for the consultant. You know, another person or another thing to bounce ideas off of, maybe before you raise something up to your manager or you go and ask someone else within the business. But again, kind of going back to the point I made earlier about the personal effectiveness, really trying to enhance the skills of everyone that is there on desk and letting them do more with either less time or more with less resource.
Yeah, great. We got another question coming in from the LinkedIn Live, which is about, you know, how much you're using AI on the client side versus the candidate side. So I know you've touched on that a little bit, but is there anything else you'd add on how it's been working for you on the client side? Either of you.
Yeah, I can answer first. I would say more in the messaging we've seen, it's pretty recent, to be honest. More when we're doing some cold outreach or some warm prospecting, we're seeing that AI can really take your messaging to the next level. That we partner with another Bullhorn marketplace partner called Sourcewell, and they've got some AI as well, which is really helpful to identify like hot leads versus warmer versus colder. So that's where I've seen it so far. What I would love to start playing around with is this idea of a job hopper. So if they were at, I'll use Barclays Bank because James is from the UK, if they were at Barclays Bank before and now they're at Starbucks, how can we get AI to help us target them now that they've started a new job and leverage the relationship we may have had with them at Barclays to try and form a relationship with their new role at Starbucks? So that's where I would like to see it. But in full transparency, like we have used it more on the consultant and the candidate side so far. I think it was just easier and lower risk. But now we're more comfortable with that. We can start exploring the sales side and the client side.
Great. James, anything to add?
No, I was just going to echo pretty much exactly what Leanne said as well.
We're connected.
Awesome.
Because I said Barclays.
So we had a question come in early on. It's a multi-part question that I'll publish in a second, but I think we've answered a lot of it. But the end of the question says, you know, how do you ensure recruiters don't just go back to doing things manually by force of habit after a few weeks? How do you keep the momentum going with using AI? And James, why don't you go first?
Sure. Sorry, I just muted me and unmuted me there. Yeah, so I would say it depends what systems you're using. But what we're trying to do more so now is view these changes as a workflow change, as opposed to just an enhancement of a certain system. So one of the places we've had the most success in terms of our adoption has been around, we implemented a new tool, but we did it from the get-go in alignment with L&D from, for our new academy. And we then showed the academy, they were taught exactly how to use this system. They were using it correctly, they had success from it, and we were then able to use that as a bit of leverage for some of our more experienced teams to say, hey, if you lean in and do it the same way that these guys are doing it, who have got far, far less experience than you have, this is the type of success you can also get from it, and actually more because you've got all of the knowledge, you've got the context, you've got the existing relationships as well. So I think making sure that you've got enough people in the room to support that change. If it is just myself or just Leanne, or just whoever's doing that within whatever business, it is going to fall flat because we're going to be looking for the next opportunity to improve something. But it needs to be fully supported by whether you've got L&D functions, you've got managers that are more on the tools, having those weekly meetings, potentially even meeting people on a daily basis, but making sure that they're supporting and driving that change as well. And I think, as Leanne said as well, if it's very clear you do this change because of these reasons, it makes the most sense for managers to drive that as well. They're targeted on making their teams as profitable as possible, and if you can align the change with that, it does help a long way as well.
Yeah, I think also to add, like, I totally agree with everything that James just said. And I think whoever asked the question was an excellent question. I think also if they don't want to use it, then they don't have to use it. Ultimately, AI is going to be peppered into our daily life. It'll come when it comes, or if they don't want to use it, that's okay. Like, I think there's an attitude as well that because it's the hip, cool thing at the moment, everyone has to use it. Some people have a system that works for them, and if it works for them, then that's okay. They can keep going with that. I think eventually, just like the iPhone, at first, not everyone had an iPhone. And then now with time, we've all really got smartphones, probably not all, but most of us do. And so I think also sometimes if you push against the grain, you're just going to get more resistance and more frustration. So if you've got a seasoned recruiter who doesn't want to use it that much, that's okay too. Like, I think you have to be flexible and say it's there if you need it. And some people are really going to embrace it and run with it. And some people it might take more time, and that's just about being human, right? Like, it's okay.
Yeah. There's a related question that came in, wondering sort of about the candidate side. And, are we nervous that if we have all these AI agents doing things, then candidates are going to start getting inundated with requests for screening? And how do you sort of see that? I will say from Bullhorn's perspective, we think that this is a good thing, because you start to, if a candidate has a whole bunch of request to screen, the ones they're going to do are the jobs they want the most, that they're likeliest the best fit for. But curious if either of you have seen anything around that or have thoughts.
Go for it, James.
Yeah, and do you want to? Okay, I'll jump in just from a. So I'll speak as well from a place of naivety. As I said, I haven't used any of the screening agents yet. My concern is just around a few conversations I had earlier this year with people saying, what's the point in cover sheets anymore? People can sign up to aiapply.com or wherever it is and have their profile tailored and submitted to hundreds of different profiles, really, really quickly. Now, the only concern I have for that is how long is it going to take for someone to build something that plugs into all of these screening tools and completes all the screening for somebody automatically based on the answers and the CV that they've submitted. But until that happens, I'm interested to see the efficiency that it can provide. But I think that we just need to be careful of that.
Yeah, I think it's still really new, right? And anything that is new is going to take a little bit of time of adaptation and change. I don't foresee an immediate concern. I would agree with the sentiment that James just said. I think that with time, with all these screening agents coming up, then naturally there's going to be all these people trying to cheat the system, which is why, again, going back to the third or fourth question that you asked, Nicole, they're not going to replace recruiters right yet. Like, it's not ready. So I think even if that happens at the initial stage, hopefully the recruiter will tune in that this person didn't actually complete the screening or the results. The other great thing at the moment, which I think will change, is you can usually tell if you're talking to an AI agent, it doesn't sound exactly human. Obviously that will evolve with time. And so I think as soon as a recruiter gets on the phone with a candidate, they're going to understand whether or not it's a real person on the other end or whether or not it's an AI agent.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's going to be frustrating. That's going to be a period of adjustment. But I think right now it's not an immediate concern, and it's something we're just going to have to adapt to when it comes.
Yeah, great. Another question we have here is if you've had to make any changes to your internal teams to help incorporate AI. Either of you had to do that?
Not from my end. I don't know for James. I don't think we've had to make any particular internal changes yet. James, do you?
I, it's a bit of an interesting question. I would say potentially my role wouldn't necessarily exist if the advancements hadn't been made. Yeah, so I was sort of brought in to sort of lead on our sort of sales technology, and I think the introduction of AI, the advancements that we've seen to Bullhorn and our other systems, sort of created the need for a role like mine. Um, and as I say, I'm actively now hiring into my team as well. And again, I don't think I'd be able to do that if I hadn't have shown, the successes that we've had with certain
Value.
systems, or the
Mm.
value that's going to be added by making changes, linking systems into each other better, or kind of streamlining some of those processes. But I'm starting to see more of it. Most weeks I get a notification from LinkedIn saying innovation manager jobs are up and stuff like that.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm starting to see lots of people in roles similar to me, or head of marketing type roles within recruitment, that are now starting to take a closer look at systems utilizing AI, and how they can sort of make the most of that within their teams.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I'm not sure if the question was more asking, have we removed positions because of the introduction of AI? That's kind of what I understood. For us, no. But I would agree with James, like more people like me and James exist than 3 years ago. And I see more and more jobs coming out on LinkedIn for that.
Great. All right, I think we've got time for 2 more questions. I have one in here that's specific for Leanne about the screening agent, and somebody is wondering if you are using that, or do you plan on using that for high-level professional executive roles or for more clerical transactional type roles?
So right now, how we've been using it is for a specific industry in our company, but we're going to open it up to use it on all of our roles. So I'll let you know. I'll keep you in the loop. I'm not sure. As I said, it's worked pretty well on the niche roles that we've practiced so far, and we'll have to see whether or not it's as widespread. Again, it's pretty new on Bullhorn's portfolio as well, so I imagine it's going to evolve and develop with time. But you'll have to reach out to me on LinkedIn so I can fill you in. Not sure about how well it's going to do on the clerical and professional executive roles yet.
You're going to get inundated with requests. You're going to have to.
Oh, I love to talk. So anyone who, James and I think we could both talk for hours on this subject to anyone who wants to approach us. So feel free.
So we've got 2 minutes left. I would love for each of you to just take one of those minutes and just, give your most salient piece of advice. What do you want people leaving this webinar to remember and to take away? Leanne, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. I think I've said it probably 3 or 4 times, but I think really choosing small tasks to apply AI to, and testing it out. I don't think that you need to run before you can walk. So just start small and identify some of those really manual tasks that are bogging your team down, and see what you can do with AI. There's a lot of free solutions out there too, if you wanted to just test with a couple of things and make sure you're comfortable, and then work with your vendors like Bullhorn and other partners to see when you're ready to take that next step. But really don't run before you walk, or don't bite off too much so you can chew. Just really hone in on small things, and then you'll get better with time.
James, final minute. What are your wise words?
I'd say we need more AI leaders, not more AI experts. And so you don't need to be an expert in AI to be a leader. The leadership element is about creating a space for other people to speak about the challenges they're dealing with, to start that conversation. So get people into the room. They don't need to be the techie people. They could be absolutely scared of technology and AI, but you want their voices in that room so you can deal with their challenges, work through them as well. And I'd say no, start small, get that advocacy internally, and use that advocacy to help you spread the spread the positivity, spread the success of it. It's much easier to deal with 5 consultants that are really tuned in than it is to deal with 50 or 100 people who've all got their unique challenges, ways of working, and different processes that you may not have known had fiddly details in them. So yeah, start small, but also create a space for others.
Yeah. Wonderful. Excellent advice. Thank you both so much. Really appreciate having you on. This was fun. And if anybody else has follow-up questions, feel free to send them in. We will try to get back to you with any that we missed. And I will hand over to Jocelyn to close us out.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much again. Great insights from you guys, Leanne and James, and thank you for being a great moderator, Nicole as well. I did just want to quickly share 2 upcoming webinars that we have also on AI. On May 14th, we have our webinar, Just Get Started, top AI use cases you can try today. So we'll talk about a lot of the use cases that we talked about today in this webinar. So cleaning up your data, writing better job descriptions, matching your candidates faster. So the QR code is there if you'd like to register for that one. We also have a webinar that kind of digs a little bit deeper into that cleaning up your data piece. So how to make the most out of your existing candidates with improved data management and AI. So you could definitely register with that QR code there. And with that, I want to thank everyone for joining today. Like I mentioned earlier, the recording will be sent out in an email tomorrow, as well as some follow-up items. And thank you so much, Leanne and James, for your participation today. Really great conversation, and I loved all the questions coming into the Q&A as well. And thank you, Nicole, for moderating.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Have a good day.
absolutely. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.